Want to get ahead in digital-first content? The Drop is the go-to newsletter for industry professionals, delivering insider news, trends, and insights straight to your inbox. Navigate the fast-changing landscape of digital-first production, distribution, and monetization. Sign up now for free at dropmedia.co.uk and stay informed with The Drop.
Hi, I'm Justin Crosby and welcome to this week's TellyCast. This week's show comes from Lisbon in Portugal from the 2025 Web Summit. And my guests are engineering YouTuber with over 13 million subscribers, Colin Furze, and Dose of Society's Ahmed Fayed. Plus, I catch up with Tilly Norwood creator Eline van der Velden from Particle 6 on the backlash and outcomes following the global news story that followed the launch of the AI actress in September. It's all coming up on this week's TellyCast.
So my first guest on this week's Web Summit special here in Lisbon is a YouTube legend, Colin Furze. Colin, how you doing? Welcome to TellyCast.
Welcome. That's all right. That's good. YouTube legend, eh?
Well, it's true. It's true. I mean, we've just sat. I've just sat through your brilliant panel. Really enjoyed it. Discussion on stage here, and I learned loads of new things. And we're going to sort of talk about them again now. But nearly 20 years you've run your YouTube channel, 13.2 million subscribers. What an achievement! How do you? First of all, tell us about how you first started your YouTube channel way back 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah. I mean, things have changed now a bit, haven't they? So essentially, before YouTube, I used to ride BMXs. And we used to film that, and we used to do a little bit of messing around as well, filming stuff. There was the kind of pre-Jackass. There used to be a skateboard video called Kill Yourself or something, CKY, where it was just like, it's half skateboarding, half of them whacking each other with skateboards and stuff and all sorts of crazy stuff. Well, that kind of, in our era, that was kind of like quite topical. So that's where kind of the video skills come from. And I basically had this VHS tape, which got put together, which was called Safety Starts Here. And I remember like my sister used to pass it around work and stuff. And it was a little bit of me BMXing, a little bit of messing around. And then basically YouTube became a thing. And then somebody said, oh, there's a website now where you can upload videos sort of thing. Why don't you put it on there? Now, I couldn't put the whole tape on. It was only like 10 or 12 minutes long. But of course, when YouTube first started, it was like 100 meg file limit. So I had to like section out like tiny sections of it, nearly a little bit like social media clips of today, but obviously landscape, and upload them. And then that kind of immediately gained some traction. Like they did okay. I mean, the first video I ever put out, it's not on there anymore, there was a super soaker attached to my BMX, which was essentially a flamethrower. Other reasons I had to take that off slightly later on in the day. But that did really well. And then it kind of, there was all sorts of things that happened at the same time. So as YouTube became a thing, unfortunately my dad passed away not long after that, which the pro side of that was that gave me access to his shed, because I wasn't allowed in his shed when he was alive. So it was his space. And then I started making stuff, and obviously that went on the internet. And then the two things kind of then started to form into what it's become today, and this big, the engineering channel of, people have watched me basically learn to become an engineer over the past 20 years. So that's how it first started. I used to be a plumber. And then I think 2009 was when I basically kind of got plucked away from plumbing just temporarily to do a TV show for Sky, Gadget Geeks. And essentially I never went back to plumbing after that. I just thought, right, they've paid me some money because it was like 6 days a week in a hotel. When I finished it, I hadn't spent anything they'd paid me because everything was sorted. So I thought, right, I've nearly got like a year's worth of money here, which I haven't barely touched. Why don't I just use that to kind of fund myself for the next year of just doing YouTube projects? And it all coincided with when YouTube started to paying ad revenue and things like that. And then I managed to just sustain it. And obviously it's just grown and grown ever since.
And well, it's an amazing story, really. And you're now one of the biggest individual creators on YouTube from the UK and many other territories as well. Tell us a little bit about the cadence of content that you produce, because you still produce it all yourself, right? Yeah.
I still do everything myself. Sometimes that's a benefit. Sometimes it's a hindrance. Obviously, being the filmer, the editor, everything. Then if certain things take a long time, as you very well know. So certain videos, certain projects can take a lot more. Obviously, the current project I'm working on with the underground tunnels and the garage system, that has been a big job. So for me, it's been very challenging because obviously I've had to worry about the house falling in the hole. I've had to worry about the path falling in the hole, everything falling in the hole. So that has been quite I wouldn't say it's been a nightmare, but it's been quite overwhelming at times, if you know what I mean. So obviously the gaps between the videos have been a bit larger than usual. But normally I used to try and put a month, 6 weeks maybe in between each project, to try and film something and then get it out there. But some things can happen really fast. I've had some videos which have literally took me a week to make, and they've been just as successful as ones that have taken months.
Well, I think you're just a brilliant example of the way that YouTube can provide such an amazing platform for somebody who's creating niche content but super entertaining, and you just described it as an engineering channel, but it's actually an entertainment channel as well, isn't it?
It is an entertainment channel because ultimately, if what you're watching is not fun or exciting, then your audience shrinks again, if you know what I mean. It's always ever decreasing, isn't it? With everything you ever do. Yeah. You put something out there's a certain amount of people that will watch it, and then a certain amount of people of that will then watch it all the way through, and then a certain amount of people of that will then click on something, and then all that sort of thing, etc. But I always try and edit my videos with a parent sat there with their child in mind, sort of thing, because a lot of people have come up to me and say, like, we watch your videos with the kids, so I don't put any swearing in them. I make sure if there is any jokes or innuendos, they're easily described by the adult in a way that they can get out of it, sort of thing. So, Daddy, what did he mean by that? Oh, he's just talking about his dog or something, sort of thing. So I always think, as a parent myself,
there's a bit of a wink. There's a bit of a knowing wink, is there?
Yes.
If it's a little bit edgy.
Yeah, I think the real Colin would be a little bit more cross the other way, sort of thing, a bit more edgy. But I try and tone it down as much as I can because I know everybody's watching, not just some people. So yeah, I mean that's the joy of it, is that my audience is very broad. Although the YouTube analytics say it's 96% male, when I've done events and in shows and stuff and people come up to me, there is a massive range of, genders, age groups, different types of people, you name it. Do you know what I mean? It's sometimes very hard to say what a Colin Furze YouTube viewer is and looks like, sort of thing, because they seem to come from everywhere.
But with it being a global channel, obviously, is the States the biggest your biggest audience in terms of location?
I think for a lot of people, America is always the number one. I think that's just because YouTube is an American site. It's kind of born there. It's like, it just seems to be most people you talk to, it's America, then your country of origin, and then the rest of the world is divided up into, whatever proportions it is. But I do find that with mine, it depends on the project. Like when I do bicycle stuff, India, Vietnam, places like that tends to rise up the order because obviously they're really, they obviously like their bicycles. Netherlands as well, you can't get to Netherlands without seeing bikes everywhere. So different projects obviously appeal to different sorts of people in different countries. So that graph is an ever-changing lottery sometimes, depending on what you're doing.
That's interesting. So, what was the first video then when you started producing regular videos? Which was the first one that made you think, actually, this is going to be a really going concern? I can make a career out of this, and I don't need to rely on anything else. What was the first video, and why did it work so well?
There's kind of two answers to that. So obviously I started uploading stuff from that original VHS tape. I could see that certain things were doing well. Sort of people like the sort of funny, pranky, weirdy looking things that we were doing. And I had this crazy idea. We were coming back from somewhere. We were all hungry and we passed this guy with like a burger van or something on the back. It was like a toad thing that you pull up. And I remember just saying to my mate, if he was in the back of that cooking, we could reach across and I'd have one of them now. Do you know what I mean? We're all hungry. We'd do that. And I was like, we should do that. So we got an old caravan, cut a hole out of it, tried to serve burgers and beans to my mates while we were driving. So all on private roads, of course. And it was, I remember seeing that, and there was a particular point at the end of it where for some reason, I had this giant suit on, which I had because I was the mascot for the local football team. And Daniel Lambert, the guy from Stanford, like this really large guy. So I had this suit, which made me really large. For some reason, I thought I'd wear that to make me look different. And I said to my mate, so right, let's get loads of old plates. We'll stack the caravan full of this old crockery, go along, ram your brakes on as if someone's pulled out in front of us, and then all the plates will go flying. Hilarious. He drives off, doesn't he? He was only doing about 30 mile an hour, whacked his brakes on, plates went flying. I literally rolled over as if I wasn't a person. I just retained my shape, went over and actually went through the end of the caravan. Because, I mean, this caravan was rubbish, as you can imagine, we've been given it. Smashed out the end of it. All the plates shot out the hole as well all over the road. I was just in absolute hysterics. And I remember looking at that clip and thinking, this is actually really, really funny, really good stuff sort of thing. I kind of looked at it slightly different because obviously the internet was in its infancy. And I was like, that's going to end up on telly, that is, either in a You've Been Framed sort of thing or, little clip shows sort of thing. And from that point, I started to think right, rather than making these kind of individual hit things, is there anything we can do where we show everything? And then the first project for that was the Wall of Death. And we built it. We showed me testing it and we showed me riding it. It was 3 separate videos, and the final one, YouTube themselves actually picked it out to put on their homepage, because back in the day, I actually quite like the old YouTube homepage. We all saw the same homepage, and they would pick out certain videos, they would put it at the top, and it would stay there for half the day, and then another one would replace it, and then they would sort of cycle down like a conveyor belt. And you'd end up watching stuff that you wouldn't search for. I know about sequoia trees. I understood what Asperger's disease or syndrome, whatever it is, sort of thing. And it's I would never have searched for that. And I just thought it was really good. Whereas now, if you watch a video about golf, you're constantly shown videos about golf.
It's all about the algorithm.
And you end up in an echo chamber. Whereas back in the day, it was completely the opposite to that. So it was quite good. So yeah, they were kind of the first two things, was the getting fired out of a caravan, which was hilarious. And then obviously building this giant wall of death out of pallets and then riding it. And then it kind of went on from there, where you'd sort of show a little bit more of what you do. And obviously eventually it got to the point where people were no, we want to see everything. We want to see you build this from the ground up. So
yeah. I'm going to ask you at the end of this, your top 3 favourite videos that you've ever produced on the channel. So okay. I won't ask you that right now. I'm going to tell you my favourite, which is the farting at France.
Yeah. See, I forget about that sometimes. That was actually a pilot for a Channel 4 series. They wanted to do this series where basically content or influencers, whatever we get called nowadays, asked their audience for certain things or a certain direction to try and take it in. And we were supposed to kind of source parts and materials and stuff from your viewers. It kind of worked. It was a little bit tricky because the internet's a very fast moving thing, whereas obviously because it was a pilot, everyone was trying to find their feet. So the internet was way quicker than what the production side of things were. So it kind of nearly lost its, do you know what I mean? I was like, we need to get on with this now. I'm I'm at this stage, and they were oh, but the general idea of it, farting at the French, I mean, you can't not like that, can you?
I mean, if anybody hasn't seen it, just go into Colin's YouTube channel, and it's basically a large pair of plastic buttocks that are
steel.
Steel buttocks.
Steel buttocks.
Sorry,
yeah, I can't make anything in plastic. Can't weld it. I'd say.
This episode of TellyCast is brought to you with Shaftesbury, the hit-making producer behind international series like Murdoch Mysteries, Hudson and Rex, Departure, and Hell Motel. Shaftesbury builds worldwide fandoms across digital, live events, Roblox and more, creating entertainment brands that live far beyond the screen. Check out Shaftesbury's Jay Bennett on TellyCast, speaking from MIPCOM 2025, sharing how smart marketing, multi-platform rollouts and innovative IP strategies keep global audiences coming back for more. Shaftesbury, built on legacy, driven by what's next.
And some sort of jet engine that made, or what was the device?
Yeah, it was a giant pulse jet engine because they're basically ferociously loud. I'd made one and put it on a bike. That was probably my most watched video prior to this. and they are ear-splittingly loud. So I made this really big one, and it was like more bassy. Whether they did hear it in France, I don't know. It was quite a windy day, but even all the French people that watched it, they loved it. Like, there's so many comments like, I'm French and I stand right behind this. I kind of wanted the French to do something back. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So like, you know, like raspberry. I don't know what the French version of farting at us would be, you know, But yeah, that was a fun project. I remember driving it down to like Dover. We had this massive butt on the back of the van with this big pulse jet engine. Brilliant. So,
well, you mentioned Channel 4 and you mentioned Sky earlier on. So tell us about, you know, your relationship with TV, because, you know, lots of broadcasters will kill for your audience, you know, your size for your audience, and also how passionate they are and this community that you've built up around your content. So, yeah, what's your relationship with traditional TV? Because you must get approached all the time. You know, how do you view TV now?
Well, I suppose if you look at it from going back, obviously I did Gadget Geeks, which was the Sky One show. I learnt a lot on that because before that, I didn't used to talk as much on my YouTube channel as what I did after that, because obviously there was a lot more presenting. I kind of learned a bit more how to film stuff properly, the tights, wides, GVs, talking, nodding shots, all that sort of, you know, stuff, sort of thing. So that was kind of like a bit of an apprenticeship for me in like how you put a video together and how you put a story together. So that was fantastic. Obviously, post that, my YouTube channel take off. I did, you know, I've been on clip shows, I've been interviewed, I've done various other little things. But I think the thing I always struggled with is obviously a bit like when we did the fart at the French thing. When there's a production company involved, I'm very nimble. I'm one person. I could change direction and do what I like at the turn of a hat. And also, I think you have to worry about health and safety, because I'm just like, do I want to do that? Yeah, no, let's go and do it. Obviously, with telly, you know, we'd have constant things like, yeah, we really love this, let's try and do this. And then obviously they'd put it through the health and safety filter, and what you got out the other side was not quite a Colin Furze thing. It's like, yeah, but I wouldn't do it like that now. Do you know what I mean? I'm like covered in safety gear. It just doesn't look right.
Well, it's the authenticity as well, isn't it?
Yeah, but I get the constraints they're working in against the ones that I wasn't working in. So I understood it. It wasn't something, you know, you couldn't get angry about it. It's just, you know, we were different working in parameters. But I think there's a part to play. You know, telly still exists. It's going to be weird how it changes in the future, because I've got kids and if they put the TV on, they don't consider terrestrial telly. It's not even an option to them. Do you know what I mean? They see it probably as the news and maybe the thing in the morning, but even then they don't really take any notice of that. So it'd be interesting to see as they get older whether they start to, oh, you know, I'll stick this on and look for that. But the idea of waiting for something to come on at 8 o'clock is just, they just don't get it. Yeah. So, but then maybe it will change, you know, maybe it will become like a combination of the internet and telly and whatnot, but who knows?
Who knows? And now there's lots of different platforms out there. Obviously, you've correct me if I'm wrong, but you've pretty much focused almost solely on YouTube.
YouTube's my biggest one. I do TikTok. I've got an Instagram page. I've got Facebook, but obviously YouTube is the biggest platform, so therefore it's the one that I'd favour the most in terms of the ad revenue and everything. Their model has been the better one for a long time. Obviously, Facebook, you know, they started doing monetization and stuff a while back, but it's a bit more complicated. Facebook is. I mean, I've got somebody that sort of slightly runs my Facebook page because I don't really understand it. Like, Facebook just has pages and pages of stuff. There's the business manager, there's Messenger. It's just broken up into an absolute mess as far as I can see. But yes, but I do the others. And to be fair, they're all slightly different audiences. Like, obviously, TikTok is very short attention span, very quick things, although they are trying to get longer stuff on it now because they've kind of, you know, they're all realising where other people are successful because they all look at each other, don't they? Think, right, how can we get people to stay on our app longer? Oh, well, maybe we need to do this. So they're all sort of trying to rob each other. Obviously, YouTube Shorts is basically only there because TikTok's a success.
Yeah.
So there's all that sort of thing. So, you know, when you think of a project, you don't just think of the long form video. You think of, right, what individual bits will make good social media clips and good shorts or reels or whatnot. So you kind of have to think about it from like 3 or 4 different angles.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I think, you know, the signs are that TikTok's going to be starting moving to TV screens fairly soon as well. And you would have thought, lots of the other platforms will as well. I mean, in terms of people that are watching your YouTube content on their TV screens, I mean, have you seen that increasing recently?
That is now it's the most watched platform. Like if I look at my analytics, I think it's about 50, 60%, it might even be 70 actually, is watched on smart TV. Smart TVs have definitely changed how people watch stuff, because the YouTube and stuff is no longer something that you'd watch on a phone, a tablet or your laptop or PC sort of thing. Now it's in the lounge. Like that's made a massive difference, because even YouTube have said make sure everything you film's in 4K, make sure it's got good sound and stuff like that, because when you watch stuff in the lounge, it's if you filmed it on something like, not necessarily a phone, because obviously phones have got a lot better, but if it was lower quality, when you watch it on a telly, you can tell, can't you? You're looking at it, you're like, oh, and especially now as TVs have got massive, most people have like 40 odd inch tellies, don't they? So if you filmed it on like an old camera from like 7 or 8 years ago, people are going to look at it and go, this looks awful. So you've got to pay attention to that. But also like YouTube are like pushing for longer videos now. Like when I first started, like those first videos, the ideal length was like 2 to 4 minutes at best. Whereas now, if you upload something for half an hour, they're happy with that, because it's like an episode of something. And that is why it is starting to kind of replace, I suppose, normal content, because you'd sit there in the lounge and watch something for half an hour.
So can we be interested to touch very briefly on business and the business aspect of it? Obviously, AdSense and revenue is a major part of that for you, with that many followers and subscribers, should I say. But you also do a number of brand deals, and you've got memberships as well on your YouTube. Can you sort of break it down in terms of a rough kind of percentage, in terms of what your income streams are and which are the biggest ones?
So the ad revenue is paid on watch time. So again, if you've got a longer video and people do watch it all the way through, you're going to get more money for that than what you are for like a short one. That then depends on how interesting your video is, because you can have a video that's got 5 million views, but if people are only watching like the first couple of minutes, then that's not going to be the same as 5 million views where they watch the whole thing all the way through. There'll be a massive difference in that. So it's a decent chunk of it, because, my videos, they are mostly now between 15 to 30 minutes long, which is, reasonably decent. And then you get your sponsorships. I'm lucky I've got a lot of repeat sponsors. I always try and make my sponsorship integrations just as fun as the video. Because obviously when they first started becoming a thing, where I remember the first time I watched a video and then somebody goes, oh, and now from our sponsor, and they started talking about something else for a minute. I was like, the hell's this? Do you know what I mean? Like, this is awful. Like, how could you? Oh, I don't like where this is going.
Well, it's an interruption. That's what they call that, interruption marketing, rather than obviously what you're doing is integrating,
Yes.
the sponsors.
And I suppose as well, like if you think back when it first started, when the internet was just on your phones and on your screen, it nearly felt like you were doing something slightly different to telly. It felt like a different platform. It was a bit more underground. So obviously having something come in the middle of the video felt more like a commercial, like you'd see on ITV. So I think we looked at it. It was like, no, you can't do that on the internet. We're trying to get away from that. So I think people were just like, ugh. But then obviously, as more people did it, as everything, it becomes more socially acceptable. Oh yeah, I've seen a few other people do it, so I'll just skip it or whatever. And that's the thing with the internet. Obviously, you can just forward the whole thing and then you're back to the video again. So I think ultimately people realise that doesn't really matter that much, does it? We can just forward it. And so anyway, I decided at some point, I thought, everyone's doing it, I may as well give it a go. Do you know what I mean? It's like you're technically leaving money on the table, aren't you? And I thought, right, how can I do this in a way that people aren't going to be like, oh God, it's a blooming advert. So I try and do something which might not be related to the brand at all, that's just interesting. So people think, oh, wait a minute, don't quite forward that. What's that he's putting on his feet? Do you know what I mean? What's that he's doing? He's getting in a bath of beans or something. Do you know, anything like that just made it slightly more interesting, so people stayed and watched it. And it's obviously worked, because like I said, I've got repeat sponsors. Surfshark they wanted to sponsor way more videos than I wanted to give them. Insta360 have always come back for more. We've done various things like this mattress topper, where I've took it to like exotic locations, you know what I mean, to try and demo it and use it in a way that's just a bit more interesting. So yeah, it must be working. But yeah, so you've got your ad revenue, you've got your sponsorships. There used to be things like clip shows and TV licenses and stuff, but that has reduced quite a little bit now. But then you got your memberships, which is a bit like a Patreon. Do you know what I mean? Where some people, if they want to pay to see like bespoke content, what I tend to do with my channel members is I let them name stuff. Because if I come up with something, like we did the really tall bike, which they named as the Hicycle, great. And then I did my pizza bike where we made the pizzas on the motorbike and they called that the Pizza de Moto. There was a couple of other things as subhead because they've got with so many different things. The dough livery or something, the dough livery. So there was all sorts of brilliant ones. I'm like, I don't know how to pick one of these. So I always think like if you've got a problem, ask the internet. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like crowdsourcing all the minds.
And I mean, you've obviously got a brilliant mind for knowing what your audience loves and enjoys. But do you ever... I mean, you talked a little bit in the session earlier on about your community and how nice they all are, rather than it being some other channels. It's a load of trolls and people just taking the opportunity just to have a go at each other. Yeah. But how, in terms of listening to your audience, have you ever generated any ideas for your channel from conversations that are happening?
You'll see comments every now and again on something. Like you might be trying to build something and then I remember one of the comments that stands out above is I was trying to make a funny shape thing. I don't know what it was. And somebody said, oh, why don't you try hydroforming it? You only need a garden pressure washer. And I was like, what's this? Never heard of that. I've got a garden pressure washer. Do you know what I mean? Let's look into this. And I looked into it. And essentially, if you weld two flat pieces of metal together, like around the seams, and then put your garden pressure washer in it, your garden pressure washer kicks out like 120 bar of like standing pressure, which is massive. And you can inflate metal like a balloon, basically, and it would change shape. And it just blew me away. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And literally just did a whole video on just messing around, trying to do funny shapes. And that was all generated from a comment. And, and people will get involved. You'll put something out there and you might get somebody who's, I used to work for a company and we used to try and do things like this, or we used to do it the opposite way round, try making this before that, and then put them together and you'll find that, it's a better result or something. So there is all sorts of little nuggets of things. And then you'll get somebody that will just say something, oh, I thought this was going to be this. And then you're like, actually, that's quite a good idea. Or if we just change it slightly, so it's nearly another idea. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, the audience, like I said, asking the internet, pooling all those minds together is a great way of coming up with stuff.
So let's talk about your favourite 3 videos ever. I mean, I think you've created about 450 videos or something. I think I was.
Do you know what? I don't know.
It's about that. Yeah. I was having a look at it.
I should know that number, shouldn't I? I sort of don't care about it really. I'm just too focused on the next one to worry about what the last 399 have done. So tell us your top thing. I mean, they don't obviously necessarily need to be your most successful. Like the hover bike was, a really big one, and lots of others. So what's your top 3? So I think there's various different ways I like to look at this. The Wall of Death, in a way, was the first viral one I had, and it was the first thing that I made specifically for YouTube. So I always feel of it, it's a bit like my ground zero. Like that's kind of when it started. That's when my YouTube mind started. Also, fantastic project, building a wall of death out of a load of scrap pallets and riding it on a moped. I mean, it's where the look was come from as well, because I didn't have a helmet on, and all the comments were, he doesn't need a helmet on, he's got a safety tie on. So that's where that was born. So that, so there's quite a lot of meaning to that video. And then I suppose after that, I often say this is my favourite video in a couple of ways. It was my magnet shoes. Now, this was done for a trio of videos I did, which was supposed to be, it was X-Men powers, basically. X-Men Days of Future Past was coming out. Big X-Men fan. I thought, right, I'll do some videos on the run-up to that, which kind of gives me X-Men powers. And a lot of people, because this is why this is such an important set of videos, is a lot of people thought they were sponsored by Fox. And this was before, companies sponsoring people to make something on the internet was even a thing. I can't think of anyone that did anything before this up until this point. And then after that, I had a lot of people come into me, oh, that stuff you did for Fox? Yeah, well, we've got this. Can you make this? And of course, didn't want to tell them. Oh, didn't get paid from Fox for that, by the way. That was just me. And then so that set off a load of things like that. But also the thing I like about the magnet shoes was basically I wanted to be magneto. And I thought, well, I can't move stuff, kinetically, but I could stick to it. And I wanted to make these shoes where I could hang upside down. And this was at the time where there was literally very little budget for stuff. This was right back in the early days where I didn't used to want to spend anything on the actual things. Magnets that would hold my weight were I think they were like 120 quid each, and I was going to need like 4 of them at least. And I'm not spending 480 quid on magnets for something that won't work. So of course, you go to the internet, how can you make your own magnets? Because I knew coils of wire and a nail or whatever is pretty much a magnet. And then I saw this video of somebody pulling a microwave to bits. You get the transformer out of it, take the coils out. You can make quite a strong magnet from that. And literally that, with 2 12-volt car batteries through, was way stronger than it needed to be. So I just put them on the bottom of these metal plates, made these shoes. So I hung off the ceiling, then I actually walked across this metal track in my ceiling of the shed. And I'm like, you can't. That's YouTube brilliance to me. It's so cheap. People could go and recreate it themselves with very little effort. And then the end result is something which not many people have ever done before. I sort of did a bit of a quick search, if magnetic shoes exist, because before any video, you kind of have a little bit of a look to see what's out there. And there was virtually nothing. There was a couple of little websites that hinted to the fact that NASA had dabbled with it to keep people on the International Space Station from flying around all over the place. But then I thought, well, that's surely not a good idea to have magnets near a load of electrical equipment. Yeah. So maybe that got scrapped quite early. So there's that one. Absolutely fantastic. And then I suppose after that is probably the tunnel stuff. The underground tunnel that I've made it's not in the bunker. I kind of knit them all into one big thing, really. It's, as an idea, they're quite simple. It's just dig a hole, put a thing in it, but it just seems to have grasped the audience like no other project.
Well, for people who haven't seen this, you've excavated how many tons of...
There's kind of 3 stages to it, because the bunker at the bottom of the garden, we basically dug a massive hole at the bottom of the garden, built a steel box, covered it in concrete, put a garden shed on the top of the entrance, underground bunker. So that was in 2015. And I remember Tom, the guy that dug it out for me, he always said, I think we should dig the whole garden up, sort of thing. And I always said, no, Tom, let's just do it. Let's just do this bit, get this bit done first. But then after we finished it, I did always think, it's annoying that you have to walk down to the bottom of the garden shed to go in it. It would be great one day to connect it to the house. So about 5 or 6 years later, I thought, let's dabble with this idea. So I started digging down basically from inside my workshop. The neighbours went on holiday, and I thought, we'll just cut the floor out. I've made a hat. I'll make a trapdoor, and then at any given time, you could peel the carpet back, do some digging, and then put it back again. And I was like, even if it never goes...
It sounds like a great escape.
It's exactly the Great Escape, which is why everybody loves it, because it's so many projects in one. And I remember the first night, after we'd put the hole in the trapdoor, I thought, I'm going to go do some digging tonight. And I remember digging in this little 4-foot square thing, thinking, Christ, this is going to take ages, this is. Because, I was in there for about an hour or so, whatever, filled up my 14 or 15 tubs, which I could fit in the van. And it looked like you'd hardly done anything. And I was just, this is going to take ages. But then literally 2 months later, or whatever it was, you'd lift the trapdoor up and all of a sudden there's quite a big hole. And it's we're getting somewhere now. Because, when you close it and then stop looking at it and you come back the day after or the night after or whatever and lift it up, it's whoa, yeah, this is getting better, this
Progress.
Is. So anyway, we started digging down, and then it got trickier once we started hitting the rock, because obviously if you needed jackhammers and stuff like that, you had to wait for people to go out. I did make some hydraulic stuff, which was relatively silent, which could break it up. But on the digging down, that was quite tricky to get it wedged in and get it working. So we did have to jackhammer, definitely the bottom 1.5 meters was smash it up and then take it out as lumps of rock. Then we had COVID. That sort of put a bit of a pause on it because nobody went anywhere. And then obviously once we started to get out the end of that, I managed to break up. I think I was about a foot away from where I needed to be when COVID hit. It just sat there dormant for about 14 months. And then anyway, I noticed that the neighbours had went out all simultaneously. So I ran down there with a jackhammer, smashed up this last bit. And then after that, for the sideways stuff, we could use the hydraulic pin, which would just push the rock out of the way, break it up, and then you could work on it 24/7 then, because that didn't make any noise. And it was just this thing we were doing. So it was over probably like a 2.5, 3 year period nearly till the first set of videos come out. And we got to a certain stage and the internet just went nuts for it. It was just like, this is epic. And it didn't go anywhere then. It was just from my workshop and along about 4 meters, which is, it's hardly anything really when you look back at it now. And it's just every video after that, if it wasn't a tunnel video, they're like, what's happening with the tunnel? Like all the comments, never mind this, what's happening with the tunnel?
So everyone's on the project with you almost, right?
Totally, and they're so engrossed with it. It's like, when you did upload a tunnel video, it's like, yes, I've been waiting months for this. I'm gonna get home, put it on, have my tea, and they would sit down and watch it. It's like an event for them, to come and watch this next little update. And I got 10 videos out of it eventually, which I was shocked at because I didn't think I'd get that much content out of it because it's quite cut and paste. If you know what I mean, after a while, you dig a bit, you move a bit. So each video, I'm trying to think like, what's new that's happening in this video? We'd be trying to drill holes up to the surface to pour the concrete. We made a mining car. Do you know what I mean? To move the stuff around. There was just various different things I was trying to think of like what makes this video different to the last one. So anyway, got to 10. And then, so that was that. And then, of course, the stage I'm working on at the moment is we basically went from the workshop to the house first. And then I kind of thought while we was at it, let's send a corridor down to the front garden because at some point I would like the car to be able to come up out the drive. So the dream, when it's all finished, is you pull up to the house, you'll go onto the platform, it will lower down sort of thing, then you can get out your car, be able to get to the house, the bunker and the workshop and everything all underground, all, accessible when it's completely finished.
Well, this is like, James Bond as well. So it's James Bond,
it's
Great Escape. Yeah.
It's Great Escape. Do you know what I mean? It's, there's a cartoon called the Avatar Last Airbender. There's a song in that. It says fruit, a secret tunnel. Or something. The amount of comments I've had, all I can hear is the people singing Secret Tunnel. So it obviously strikes a chord with nearly every generation of my watcher. So it's like completely, you strike a chord with all these different people. So yeah. So that's probably one of the favourite ones because it's just engrossed people like no other project has. Yeah.
Well, Colin, you've been incredibly generous with your time. Thank you. And you've come across to Lisbon and you've got projects at home. You've got obviously content to make and everything. I mean, what's an average week look like to you then in terms of work? How can you afford to come and spend 24, 48 hours in Lisbon?
Well, it is tricky coming to these things because it is just me. Like nothing's happening at the moment in Stamford. The current project's in the shed. I mean, I've got a few things. I try and make sure if I'm going to do an event like this, I'll get to a certain stage and then I'll either try and order components. So I'm waiting for stuff. So I'll make sure everything, come Thursday or Wednesday or whatever, it's either all sat there on the doorstep. Waiting to be taken in or whatever. The neighbours will probably get loads of it.
Well, I was gonna. That's the last question I'm going to ask you. Is the neighbours?
Everyone wants to know about the neighbours, don't they? I get on well with my neighbours. I've always tried to be. I warn them of stuff. Didn't warn them about a secret tunnel. Thought they don't need to know about that till I'm well into it because I know what's going to worry them. If you know what I mean. But equally, I think they've come to trust me quite a bit now.
But what about subsidence, Colin?
Yeah, well, I'm luckily enough, it's far enough away from their houses to worry about it. And it is, we are on rock, so it's pretty solid ground. Yeah. But I mean, when I first built the shed, I think they were a bit nervous about the shed I made outside the back door. I think they were imagining some shanty town of a contraption of a building, and then when it was made, I think actually I thought that's quite nice actually. So because like the other side of it, which was supposed to have the fence come along the front of it, they never ever bothered putting the fence up in the end because I think the back of it, look, it was all feather edge board, all painted, It looked nice. And obviously, as time's gone on, if I've ever done anything which has, been a bit too much or, been making a bit too much noise or something that's a bit too big, I've always we won't do that. That was a bit too much. Sorry, I'll make sure that if we do anything like that again, it's done either somewhere else or we just, make sure if I'm ever doing any grinding or anything, the shed doors are always shut, sort of thing. And I think they've seen that over the years, and, worked out. I'm not actively trying to annoy them. Yeah. And I mean, like when we did the garage, digging the go. Obviously, we needed Tom at the front with a massive digger. I just said, like, when are you next out all day, sort of thing. We'll do it that day. So then you come home and it's all done. Yeah. So, and obviously when you do things like that, people appreciate that, don't they?
Yeah,
so.
Of course they do. Thank you so much, Colin. It's been brilliant. I've wanted you on TellyCast for a long, long time, so I'm really delighted that we got to meet and you could spend some time with us. And the best of luck. Best of luck with the next project and the next iteration of the tunnel and the underground.
There's still more underground stuff to do. I've got in the new year. I built a car lift, basically the thing that lifts the car up and down to the surface. And I wanted to turn it around as well inside, so you drive in forwards, drive out forwards, and then once that's all done, then there's just the last segment where it goes from the workshop down to the bunker. Right. So, and then it's underground. It's done. Then that's it. I don't want to see another piece of limestone after that.
Colin, thanks so much, and enjoy the rest of Web Summit, and thanks again.
Brilliant. Cheers, Justin.
So my next guest on this week's Web Summit special is Ahmed Fayed from Dose of Society, and I've another guest that I wanted to have on the show. Can't meet in London, but meet in Lisbon, right?
That's it. Why not Lisbon? Beautiful Lisbon. So.
It is beautiful as well. Ahmed, great to see you, and amazing to see the success of Dose of Society. So for those who aren't aware of Dose of Society, talk us through it and how you got started, and what is the problems and the challenges that Dose of Society is setting out to solve, essentially.
Definitely. So far, it's been an amazing journey. Something that kind of started out in the streets of London in 2017. But again, really wanted to start in 2011, but I didn't have the courage, I think, to really start something as a 16-year-old back then. And back then, it really just spurred off just problems within London. Like London, especially in 2011, was going through an interesting time. We had the London riots. The university fees increased from £3,000 to £9,000. So there's many things just bubbling within the city, especially for young teenagers at the time, and there wasn't really an outlet or platform for people to really voice their issues. So back then I wish I started, but didn't. But thankfully, a few years later, I kind of got the courage to kind of just start something where we hit the streets of London, King's Cross to be precise, and just start speaking to our local community about just things in the world that was happening. And for the first time, I really understood the power of content. And remember back then, see, Instagram, you couldn't do videos, TikTok didn't exist. So YouTube and Facebook was kind of our primary method of just kind of showcasing to the world just what we kind of wanted to kind of create. And fortunately, a couple years later, we got our first bit of like investment or pre-seed from Snapchat. Took us full time and really allowed us to kind of really build a team around what we're doing. And now we're at a stage where we have, I think, about 6 to 7 million followers across our social media channels. And pretty much kind of, why it exists is why you kind of started back then, is just to kind of showcase human stories. So I think we've done a pretty good job so far.
Yeah, you certainly have. So what would you say is your primary platform now? Or are you completely platform agnostic? You produce for everyone?
Yeah, I think we produce for everyone. So TikTok's probably our biggest, Instagram. But it's like, again, these platforms go in kind of waves and stages, for example. But we don't try to kind of focus too much in terms of like algorithms or blogs. I think you can get into a little whirlwind if you really start to allow that to kind of really impact you. So our main ethos, especially at the company, is just tell great stories. I think if we're at a point where we're able to tell stories very, very well, I think regardless of what platform goes, like we'll have hopefully a business for a lifetime. So I think the power for us is just being able to kind of just tell amazing stories, and hopefully whether it's a new TikTok or a new newsletter platform, wherever it is, we're able to harness that skill. Hopefully we'll be able to live throughout generations to come.
Yeah, well, you've done a great job, and just talk us through that content. So it's basically street interviews, essentially. Do you have different formats? Do you have how's content organised across platforms?
For sure. So we actually have different formats within Dose Society ecosystem. Our bread and butter and what we're known for is our street interviews. Again, simply hit the streets of different parts of the world and, again, tell stories of interesting people, everyday people, sometimes celebrities. So that's the kind of the bread and butter and what we're known for. The other side of the business is we have different other kind of channels across Snapchat, more targeted towards Gen Z era. So we have I think the biggest history show on Snap called History 101. So really just really deep dive into just history, making it fun, interesting. And now we're at a place where we've launched Dose of Society, we're able to kind of launch different things around the world. So we have Dose of Emirates now, looking to launch different doses of different localized
Yeah, I've seen you on LinkedIn a lot in various places around the Middle East and stuff. So yeah, tell us about that. How you're growing different, I guess, hubs. If you like.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I think where we're able to build something global is amazing, but I feel like to really have just wider impact, just how we're able to kind of create localized stories in different parts. Like, what does this dose of society look like in pockets of Africa, for example, or pockets of Asia? Because again, not everyone. Again, it's a language barrier, right? I know Meta and Instagram are doing a great job when it comes to AI translation, but I think it always comes to down that authentic level of stories when someone breaks down a story within their kind of culture, within their kind of language, you know? So how are we able to kind of now take what we've done as a blueprint and kind of go into different parts of the world and create little pockets of doses?
Yeah, so it's taking that authentic ethos, if you like, and then applying it to different markets.
Correct, yeah. So our first, I guess, kickstart was Dose Emirates. So that was kind of like our first kind of prototype outside of society. So yeah, so far so good.
Right. Well, as I say, amazing success. And when it comes to your audience, then, I mean, is your audience kind of unengaged with traditional news media and traditional media as a whole? Is that the key that you're providing? That authentic voice that they're missing and don't necessarily relate to mainstream legacy media.
Yeah, I think what I love about, I guess, internet culture and just socials, again, the audience decides what they want to see. Of course, the algorithm feeds sometimes what to view and based on what they like, etc. But then again, you have a choice whether you want to consume, mainstream media or look at platforms like Dose Society or, other interesting kind of, I guess, media outlets. So I guess, yeah, I think we're an interesting place. Again, without socials before, we had our standard channel 1 to 5, right? And we didn't have much options, kind of saying the same thing around news, whereas like socials is completely different, it allows people to kind of really just focus on what they really want to focus on and not really kind of feed into, I guess, what the traditional news outlets are telling them. But if they want that, there's a place for that. So I think socials just kind of just allow that kind of, really just low entry point for people like myself to kind of come into the space and just have our view on the world and hopefully allow others to share their viewpoint. And again, if the internet decides that it's a great thing, and then will decide it's a great thing and people will follow. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've just done a panel session. It was a really interesting question I thought that was posed to the panel, which was, are you, as your audience grows and gets older, I mean, are you looking to travel with them or are you constantly looking for a particular demographic, like, let's say 18 to 24, if you like? Are you always trying to rework your content for that, or as your audience gets older, are you growing older with them?
Yeah, I feel like for literally from day one, we've been in this for a few years now, like our core audience is millennials, also Gen Zs, and it's pretty much split 50-50. And I feel like what's interesting is that when we post content from a millennial standpoint, it tends to do a little bit better. Why? Because I feel like as a millennial, or if your age, let's say, for example, 30 plus, like you've been through a little bit more in life. Like you had your 20s to really, again, just figure shit out, go through heartbreak or loss of a family member, just so you have a story to tell, right? Whereas like when we do stories with Gen Zs now, it's a little bit different because they're just kind of getting started, maybe in university or just leaving university. You haven't really got that life experience.
They haven't got a broader worldview, right?
Exactly, 100%. So, but Gen Zs love to consume and just see what, again, that generations of millennials have gone through. And again, it's not a crazy age difference. And again, when we do stuff around the elder generation, 60, 70 plus, again, does really, really well because Gen Z and millennials are just so interested in terms of what that next age category or generation can kind of teach us. So as I think people tend to kind of grow with those society, I think that next wave of Gen Alphas or whatever it is will always hopefully just see us as a place where you just learn from others, and just hopefully get wiser, learn from people who've lived something or gone through something and hopefully provide hope. So I think, we're not definitely trying to be at a place where we're trying to grow our audience, stay where we are, and hopefully our audience will just continue come to because again, we've been with them for a while, and again, the new generation also be a place for them also. So yeah.
So, slightly question at a tangent, but it'll be interesting to see what your thoughts are on that. COVID was obviously a massive impact for young people all over the world. I mean, how do you think that's affected the generation that that are subscribing and listening to Dose of Society? Do you think that's because that was a shared moment that at a very sort of formative time for your audience?
COVID's bit was a again, probably a significant turning point for a lot of people, right? I guess for the first time ever, the world stopped. So regardless of what industry you were in, like just the world just stopped, you know. So I think before that we were at a place where, especially social media, competition, or this person has this great lifestyle, this person doing this, but for a second, it's like everyone was in the same place. So I think that generation who kind of lived through that, especially the younger generation, have more empathy, I think, to just other people. And I think people start to realize you should never know what others are going through, right? Whereas that before, you just was on a, I guess, what do you call it, like a roller coaster of life. Like, just didn't stop. You know?
Everyone was on their own track, maybe, right?
Everyone was on their own track. Everyone was doing their own stuff. And again, you couldn't stop because people, I guess, worried. And you go on Instagram, you know, you compare and blah, blah, blah. Whereas like, for that, again, everyone had that first time, a shared experience of what just going through life, regardless, I guess arguably what country you were in.
But everyone was going through it together, but individually, if you like, at the same time.
100%. So I think is hopefully, and again, you don't mean, again, the news doesn't show you this, but I think in different pockets of different cultures, I think it has kind of developed that empathy of like, you just never know what others are going through, you know? And also that warning of like, you never know what happens tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? Because again, COVID just came all of a sudden, and all of a sudden everyone was at home and couldn't leave their houses, and so yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about business then, and the business of Dose of Society then. Can you give us a sense of revenue streams? Is it purely, you know, ad revenue, or you've got partnership deals? Give us a sense of how you make money.
You know what's so funny, I think, about revenue? So we had I think when I first ever started, and I'm talking probably like 2 videos in, we had an interesting kind of conversation with Gary Vaynerchuk. And this first thing I asked him is, how do we make money? And I think he broke it down so simple, like really and truly, especially when it comes to content or just things in the world, there's only like 3 to 4 ways how you can make money within the world. You provide a service, you know, whether it's you're selling something or a product. So it kind of, going into this, it kind of gave me the outlook of like, cool, let's not try to oversimplify this. Let's build an audience. And once we built the audience, we knew that people would want to come and simply advertise or, you know, talk about something that they would obviously pay for. So our main ethos, we didn't even think about money. Our main ethos at the start was just build something where there's an audience. And once you have an audience, you're able to obviously sell something.
Build a product that people want, first of all, right?
100%. And that's what we did at the start. And then slowly as we started to build, obviously, you know, brands would come to us and say, hey, we'd love to pay X amount of money to, you know, create content and, you know, showcase our product within your page, etc. So that was the kind of the first understanding of making money across socials, you know, branded content. Then obviously as you start to grow a little bit more, you understand, cool, the advertising element and advertising revenue, and that Facebook actually pays for views and YouTube pays for views and Snapchat pays for views. So that was the kind of, I guess, the second element, understanding how powerful ad revenue can be. And why we were so interested in that at that point was because that was just based on if you can tell a good story or not. You know, it wasn't based on anything else. It was based on how well can you tell a story and how many people can you reach. And you do a good job, we'll pay you a decent amount. So for us, it was a bit more simpler because it was just be great at telling stories, understand how to tell stories, and money will come. So that was an interesting model. Then I guess the third element, again, is just how can we sell something without, again, I guess, technically selling our soul. So we came up with interesting strategies that let's create products that will actually impact people's lives. So we created a card game called Dare to Share, and we simply packaged our stream view questions into a card game where families can play, loved ones can play, you can play people with adults and kids. And it's been, the feedback has been amazing, where people have reached out to us via email or when we've called our customers and they're saying how this has impacted their livelihood. So yes, I think for our ethos is, again, just, you know, branded content, ad revenue, and building products that actually could impact our audience's lives. So yeah.
And what about live? I mean, is that something, would you ever go out and do live shows, or, you know?
For sure. I think even funny enough, we haven't started a podcast yet. So I think podcasts.
Really? You haven't? Okay.
Nothing. Yeah, it's crazy. I know. And it's funny because I always look back at, to terms of what, just when I was kind of really just breaking down what Dose of Society could look like. And in 2017, the podcast was there, you know? So again, and if for us, like, we're not in the world where we want to rush something and do it for the sake of doing it. So when we do launch these things, whether it's live or podcasts or even events, community events, we want to do so many things. We want to do, you know, right time, right place sometimes. So we're confident when we do launch it to something, hopefully it will be well received because it's been well thought out. So yeah.
Yeah. And do you have any sort of relationship with the sort of legacy TV industry at all? I mean, would you ever consider that? Is that something that have you been approached by TV companies?
Yeah, none. To be honest, never. But again, you're starting to see small, I guess, waves of traditional media kind of really kind of taking a look at just what the world of socials could look like. Obviously with the Channel 4s of the world, the BBC 3s of the world, starting to really understand that the impact of kind of creating content for a younger generation that understands the world of socials rather than the world of TV. So yeah, we haven't yet, but definitely seeing a rise of just kind of traditional media trying to get into that world. So yeah.
Yeah. So there's a never say never, right? There could be opportunity.
No, never. There's always synergies, man, between what existed before and what still exists compared to what's obviously new. So I think there's always ways of times and places where people can kind of collaborate and create amazing stuff that can impact various generations. So yeah.
So you're a social video entrepreneur then. What are the key challenges that you find running your business and scaling it and building it up to this point? What's been the toughest challenges for you to build the business?
I think as you grow, you see it. Like where there's more money, people say more money, more problems. The bigger the team, the bigger the problem. So I feel like every day, I think it's interesting, like where we first started, the idea is just, again, how to solve, I guess, business problems, right? And I think if you're quite creative enough, or if you're an entrepreneur, again, you thrive off that. And I thrive off that. How are we able to kind of solve problems in the world of business or create something that doesn't exist and all of a sudden it's become something, right? We've done it with society and a few other stuff now. So that's something that you're used to whilst kind of building. But what comes new is when there's more money involved, how to distribute as a founder, and what should I put more time and energy to? Same thing, you grow a team. Again, everyone has their own just problems in life or situations. So again, you have to be kind of
you have to be a business owner as well as a creator, right?
Whereas like at the end, you come in as you can create something and turn something into turn nothing into something all of a sudden, right? As an entrepreneur, whereas like once you create something, it's like it has, again, finances, it has employees, it has tax this and blah blah blah. It's like, but stuff you're never prepped for, right? Because you don't care about that stuff. You're an entrepreneur. You want to create something to solve a problem in the world, not think about finance or payroll or HR and stuff like this. So, but I guess it's something that I guess comes with it. It's good to kind of, I guess, learn around it. But again, those are some of the things that you just learn. Again, you're not taught it. You just learn of it. Whereas like on the other side of it, I think the entrepreneurship side is always the easiest part to an extent. Obviously, it's hard. Don't get me wrong, but it's just just problem solve for the world.
Yeah. So, is this your first time at Web Summit?
Fortunately, it's my third time in Lisbon. Right. So the first time I was a attendee a few years ago. Then managed to obviously meet the Web Summit team and kind of build a great relationship with them. From there, they've kind of really welcomed us in many different ways. So we're very thankful to the Web Summit team. They have an amazing team, and we do a lot of cool stuff with them time to time in Qatar, in Lisbon now. So yeah.
And for content creators, whether they're legacy media or more likely social video creators, why should they come to Web Summit? What's going on here that people can take away?
I think regardless, just wherever you are in the world, whether you're starting now or you've existed for many, many years, I think it's so important to just really understand what's happening in the world, whether it's technology or new forms of media. It's always good to just kind of go out and just meet people. And that's how we just kind of really took off, because we've always, we create great content. And again, like I said to you before, like socials is powerful, where you create good content, you grow. Whereas but sometimes throughout my career, my journey has been meeting people at events like this, and they've put you on to something or made that connection to something that's really impacted your business some sort of way. So, and the only way you can obviously, I guess, get in front of those people is being at places like Web Summit and really just shaking hands and just meeting people and just building a great network of people who want to support. Because again, what I love about Web Summit is everyone comes here because they want to benefit some sort of way or improve their life in some sort of way. So everyone has the same kind of agenda/concept when they come here. They know, cool, I want to come out of here with something. But sometimes you also have to realize to come out of something, you have to give back something at the same time as well. So how can you add value to others as well? So, but it's important to kind of come to these events and just always shake hands. So yeah.
And one of the things that I've taken from being here, this is my first time, and I was amazed to see, almost in front of my eyes, the democratization of business in many ways, in terms of, stuff that Poland is doing and Brazil. They've all got these pavilions around the place. And it really feels that AI is driving that democratization that's allowing countries that are, opening their arms to entrepreneurs and investors and working hard in this new economy that we're seeing, grow before our eyes. That's one of the big takeaways from me. It feels like stepping out of the old world and into the new a little bit when you walk into the doors here.
And it's powerful again. You're able to kind of, like you said, I think it's a great point. Being able to see what other countries are up to, not even just individuals now. And again, AI is such a powerful tool. Same thing as the internet, same thing as social media. Again, when you first kind of had that, the internet and the way of social media, and now the way of AI is just like, it's a level playing field. Like if you have a great concept, a great ideas, there's so many tools now that can help you to kind of get to that next stage, you know? So AI has kind of allowed that. And same thing as when social media kind of first came on in 2008/10, like we saw a massive wave of the lad Bibles of the world, you know? So it's like, and there were kids in their bedrooms, you know, starting something. But again, it kind of creates that level playing field that you can start something from nothing and become, you know, a massive media organization. Same thing you're seeing again with AI, you're seeing companies come out of nowhere because again, AI is, I wouldn't say so developed, it's developed, but again, I think what the next few years looks like will be, I think, at another level. But it's just like, yeah, it gives you that elevation to kind of really start something regardless of where you are. You got internet connection, you can access the internet, you can start something. So
yeah. I mean, it seems to me that, you know, there's lots of startups here, and I read a figure that I think there's over 1,800 investors, a big, you know, 86% rise in the number of investors here that are looking to invest into startups, which, you know, really feels like, you know, this is the sort of place where we might see the next Facebook, we might see the next, you know, X or whatever. This is the place where these, you know, these apps are launched and grow.
Even I saw a post that Paddy put out. I think Revolut was here a few years ago, you know?
Yeah.
I think one of the first ones in Lisbon. So you've been able to see what Revolut have done.
Yeah. And that's Paddy, the boss of Web Summit.
Correct. So yeah, I think he put something out on LinkedIn and just showing, just where they kind of started. And they just had a little stand in the Web Summit a few years ago. So, so yeah, powerful to see.
So, last question. Tell us, you know, what is next for Dose of Society over the next year or so? It's probably pointless me saying, you know, looking further ahead than a year. But by the time you're back at Web Summit next year, what are you hoping to achieve?
Yeah, no, we're super bullish again, and I guess social commerce, I think, is a massive movement. You're seeing TikTok, obviously, and before TikTok, obviously China. So social commerce is something we're looking at heavily. And also community. So how we're able to kind of take our audiences outside, obviously, where they live and build communities around the world. Whether it's community meetups or community events. I think where people are traveling so often and move to different countries, whether it's the Middle East, as you see at the moment, is like how we're able to kind of create spaces and pockets of communities around the world that people are able to kind of you know, go to places in New York and know there's a Dose Society away, you know, somewhere in their city. So I think communities are one of the biggest things we're looking at the moment. So yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what's key at the centre of the digital first economy is building communities around the content that you're doing, and you're doing an amazing job at that. Ahmed, thank you so much for joining me. I'd love to spend time with you, and love to have you involved in one of our TellyCast events, right, in the next year.
Definitely, I'll be there. Hopefully, we'll be able to do again more of a long form podcast. Also, again, I know we've been planning for a while now, but yeah, definitely, love what you're doing. Definitely be at your event soon. So yeah, appreciate your time.
All right, thanks a lot. Hi, Eline. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
And since the last time we spoke on TellyCast, you've caused a bit of a kerfuffle, really, I think. A huge global news story and, really sort of encapsulated the whole zeitgeist around AI. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a second. But first of all, what are you doing at Web Summit? What are you doing here?
Oh, I was speaking here about Tilly. You know, I love today taking people's questions, as audience questions, and I am always very keen to speak to anybody about AI and, address concerns and discuss how to move forward in an ethical way in the AI space, because I think that's really important that it comes from the creative industry as opposed to being imposed by the tech industry. So it's really important for the creative industry to actually, accept this new technology, because otherwise it will be imposed by the tech industry, and it's here to stay.
It really is. And just walking around Web Summit today, the impact of AI is just, tangible. I mean, everybody's talking about AI, every new app that's been launched, every new development. We've got pavilions from countries all around the world, which I found was really interesting because it feels like the democratization of the web, actually. We're seeing new developing countries becoming powerhouses in their own right. And so I think it's going to change things for massively over the next year or so. So let's talk about Tilly Norwood, which is your AI creation. The last time you were on TellyCast, you hadn't launched it. So, our jumping off point, I suppose, was the last time we spoke, you talked about, how anybody now can actually become a Hollywood studio. And Hollywood studios is reliant on Hollywood actors and Hollywood talent. And so you created Tilly Norwood. For anybody everybody's heard of Tilly Norwood now, but for anybody who's not aware, just bring us up to speed on, who Tilly Norwood is and what the launch story was that caused this global sensation.
Yeah. So just to be completely clear, Particle 6 is very much about helping the traditional film and TV industry by, say, they only are missing 20 or 30% of their budget. We can look at their script or at their show and work in AI in ways to reduce the budget, but keeping real actors and everything in there. Now, however, we at Particle 6 and at Sequoia is a separate vehicle, we feel very strongly about ethical use of AI, especially digital twins. We should never use someone's likeness or without, explicit consent of fair compensation. So we thought about this, like in the AI genre, we would never just use an existing actor. We would want to maybe create our own actors in that space. And I've always been very proud to have been, educated creatively in the UK. I always thought that the UK is a, British global creative powerhouse. And that's why I came there from Curacao, which is a small island in the Caribbean. And British talent has always been a huge export to the UK. And so I felt in order for Britain to keep up in this new creative renaissance, it would need to have a British talent export in the AI sphere as well. And that's why I wanted to create Tilly. So that was around February.
Yeah.
And it was a long process, lots of human input. Every step on the way, we really thought about every little bit, including her name. So if it's correct, there shouldn't be anybody in the world called Tilly Norwood. And I think Ryan Reynolds tried really hard to find a Tilly Norwood for his advert that he did, but he couldn't. He found a Natalie Norwood. And so we really thought about the name very carefully, what that name represents, how Tilly would resonate with the audience. And then there was months of, I think we have over 2,000 images of her that were not right. So it took a really long time to iterate to get to the right Tilly image. First, she was very airbrushed and maybe too glamorous. And then it was about the skin texture and the freckles. And so it took a long, long time. And I'm really pleased with the output because I think she did resonate and she did spark a conversation around the world that we needed to have.
Yeah, well, she certainly did. And I think, give us a sense of some of the news outlets that covered the story.
Oh, it was all across from, I think, Japan to little villages in Austria to CBS and, all the big US broadcasters as well. So.
Yeah. And I guess the takeout from that, this underlying story there was just this fear of AI a little bit. AI is coming to take over, and replace talent. I think it was Emily Blunt. I think was
because it was really scary.
Yeah, I actually got to Emily Blunt, saw her a few times interviewed and just saying how scared she was.
Yeah,
a number of different actresses were talking about this, but that wasn't your intention, obviously.
No, not at all.
But it seems like the press kind of took this story and then sort of ran with it and almost built their own narrative around it. Is that what would you agree with that?
Look, it is scary. I agree with all of them. I also agree with SAG-AFTRA saying she's a computer-generated character. She absolutely is. So it is scary, but I remember seeing these generations for the first time and being like, whoa, this is where we're at. This is where the tech's at. And so in a way, it was a great way to show the world this is where the tech's at. We need to all know, and the creative industry needs to know that this is where the tech's at, right? And so Tilly was able to do that. And look, the fear around it was very normal and very human, and I think that's okay. I think it's then about companies like us to set the guidelines and the ethical rules in place. And so what are we going to use Tilly for? Now, she's had loads of offers for film and TV to be an actor in a mainstream sort of TV show or a film where she would be amongst live actors in the traditional filmmaking space. That's not what she was designed for. I think that's where some of the misconceptions were. She was made for the AI genre, and that's where we'll keep her for now. She might even employ some real actors, and she's employing a lot of humans behind the scenes as well. You have to also remember AI is made by humans, and it takes a lot of human input to get good AI
Yeah, this
work.
isn't just something that you can stick into, Runway or Midjourney or whatever.
I mean, you can just create an AI actor on VO3 or Sword 2 like this, but will it have the same reaction as Tilly Norwood? Probably not.
No. And, it'd be interesting to talk about what's next then for Tilly, because now, I mean, there was a lot of negative reaction, and I think a lot of that was unfair, actually. Actually, let's talk about that for a second. There was quite a lot of vitriol around this as well.
Yeah.
How did that affect you? Because this is not something that you've had the experience of trolls before, which we talked about on the last episode of TellyCast when you were actually a YouTuber a number of years ago. Talk us through, what that was like, because that must have been pretty upsetting in its own right.
Yeah, look, I mean, I switched it all off as soon as I could. I think, trolls are part of the internet. I think it's not a great part of the internet. I wouldn't be proud if I was part of the trolling community. And, you get really awful things in there. And many other people, have spoken out about this. So I'm not the only person to face this, but I would say it's especially bad. Or I think Instagram was probably the worst. And I think as a humanity, we should change something about that so that doesn't happen. And people should know that if you threaten or death threat somebody online, like that is the equivalent of doing that in real life. And that is harassment, which I think a lot of people are not aware.
Did you have that?
Yes, I did. Yeah. So I think people need to know that what you say online is still real, right? But look, it's also part of this global stage that Tilly's on. So, and I really, really, I got very heartfelt messages, and I totally sympathize with them, and we are trying to respond to every single one of them. So, and people can disagree. That's totally fine. There's a line between disagreement and then there's threatening and awful behavior. So yeah, it depends. But we also, and this is the thing that people maybe didn't see, got loads and loads of fans and loads of love, which was wonderful. And so many people reached out to us because they'd come to our site and seen what we could do. And they realized that we were about premium AI content. And so it launched a whole load of really exciting projects making premium AI content with new partners. Right.
Fantastic. Well, that's great to hear. And it really sparked the conversation, didn't it? It sparked this global conversation about where we are right now, what's achievable, what's possible. And so I'm delighted that there's a really positive outcome. And you're here, right? Here at the Web Summit talking about AI. What were some of the more interesting questions you got? Because it was a Q&A session that you did. What were some of the most interesting questions you got from the audience?
I guess I love talking about the tech behind it. So I think the tech's fascinating. I see it a little bit like, the way mathematicians and accountants have had calculators and Excel sheets for so long. And this is finally a calculator for the creative mind. So that's why I love playing around with it. And then people also, I think there's a misunderstanding about how the system works because, nobody explains how an LLM works, right? So it's been trained on billions and billions of amounts of data. And that should probably be paid for, right? That's in the courts right now. Let's hope it gets paid for. I agree that it should be paid for. My content is probably in that content as well that it's been trained on. I probably won't see any compensation for that because I signed away rights as an actor at some point. But I don't mind.
This was when, by the way, for people that don't know, you were actually,
I was an actor.
Talent.
Yeah.
You were on, yeah. Okay.
I was on BBC. I had a few shows on BBC, and I was a YouTuber before then. So yes, it's probably trained on lots of my stuff. But I don't mind, and the reason I don't mind is because I get to use it. So I'm glad it's trained on me. I encourage it to be trained on me because if it was only trained on a specific data set, that wouldn't be good for me. It's good to have been trained on my crazy stuff. Yeah. And so going forward, it democratizes creativity, right? So it means that everybody in the world is allowed to use these tools, many of these tools, and not just one company. And that's really important. So what happens after all this training, it then is about a statistical probability of a pixel in a certain position in a frame to generate an image. Now, there's only a finite number of positions that these pixels can be in. So there's only a finite number of images you can create. And you can manipulate the position of those pixels by your word prompt. So you can change that prompt over and over again to get that positioning. The same goes for moving image, pixel positioning, and then moving. It's a fixed number of moving images that can be generated. So soon enough, we will have all the types of pixel positions in there, and then we can generate whatever we want.
Yeah.
Including a woman with hairy legs, which I tried for a long time, many years ago, and it wasn't possible, and it is now. So that's good.
Should you want such a thing?
Should you want that?
Yeah. So what's next then, Eline? I mean, it sounds like that there's loads of positive outcomes have come from the launch of Tilly, which is great. But what's next? What's next for Particle 6, Sequoia, and Tilly?
Okay, so I see Tilly as an onion. First, we did the outside of what she looks like and her name. And now we're peeling off the layers. What's her personality? What's her brain like? What's her sense of humor like? And we're developing all of that. And I can't wait for next year for that to be released. And then we'll be making a lot of content with Tilly in the coming year. So I'm really excited to show that.
Right. And will she come on TellyCast, have a chat?
Hope so.
Yeah.
I hope she'll be invited.
Yes. This is the invitation right now. And what are you doing for the rest of the Web Summit? Have you got any other sessions that you're doing?
Yes, I'll be doing a session tomorrow talking about Tilly and the future of Tilly as well. And yeah, I'm really curious about how people are using AI in different ways. And, for us, it's all about creating original content. And in order to do that, it takes many years to sort of realize what is the ethical use of AI and how do you use it as a force for good, right? So we want to get more stories told. That's really key. And so because we've been prompting for so long, we also have to really clear guidelines as to what you can say in a prompt. And so I want to communicate to people how they should start to prompt and to not make any references to copyrighted works in your prompts. Don't say, I want a Disney character like this, or I want an actress like that.
Because that must be the first thing that anybody does when they get on an LLM. They say, I want this to look like, Masters of the Universe or, Tom Cruise or whatever.
Yes.
And clearly that's unethical, just as a pure starting point, right?
Which, over time we found it to be unethical because when you're producing normally, you might have used such references, right? When you're pitching or something. Yeah. But actually with an LLM, I wouldn't be so specific because it is much more specific at knowing what that means.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't. And I think this is just the start of it, of this creative renaissance. And we're just trying to, with AI now, imitate what we can already do in normal. And then once people get used to that, the creativity roof will open up and we will start to see more creative works than we've never seen before. And that's when it will get really exciting. Yeah. So I think 2027 is... 27
is the year that
that humanity is ready to see something a little crazier.
Right. Well, that's a great point to end on. Eline, thank you so much for joining me. It's great to see you again. And we should talk about prompts, the science and the art of prompting, actually, because that'd be... So I'd love to... Maybe you can, when you come on with Tilly, we can talk about that as well.
Sure.
Well, that's about it for this week's show. I hope you enjoyed it. TellyCast was recorded in Lisbon and produced by Spirit Studios. We'll be back again next week with another show. Until then, stay safe.